Welcome to the Have More Fun podcast. In this episode, I talk with Francie Winslow about what to do if your life feels chaotic, you're living on autopilot, you're tired of yelling at your kids about technology, or you want more margin to do the things you love.
It started in our marriage, actually. Wyatt, my husband, started asking me permission to use his phone. And it really bothered me, I'm going to be honest, because it convicted me. I'm like, sure you can use your phone. Why are you asking me? Then there was actually an earthquake, and I got really scared, and I ran out to Best Buy, and I bought a TV.
We are huge fans of boredom at our house. Right? Like, we
Right.
all
Let
grew
them
up
be
bored,
bored.
I feel like.
And they'll break through.
Yeah.
Creativity at some point.
For nearly 5 years, I have driven the same 12-minute route to work, Monday through Friday, week after week, passing the same houses, the same parked cars, the same office buildings, making turns on autopilot, every day, the same. Nothing new to see. My commute is like the Truman Show, calculated to the minute, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That is until one morning I stopped at a familiar light and saw a mom taking her kid to school. But she wasn't like the other moms walking their kids to school at a brisk pace with kids trailing behind her. This mom was a quadriplegic in a motorized wheelchair that she maneuvered with her chin. Her son, who had to be about 5 or 6 years old, rode on the chair near her feet, with his backpack on and his feet tucked up under him. As I watched them cross the street directly in front of me, they were enjoying a conversation, laughing at their own private jokes, and completely enjoying their journey to school. I was so mesmerized by them that I didn't realize the light had turned green until cars behind me started honking, jolting me on my way. And ever since that day, I find myself at the corner of Colorado and Amherst, looking for that same mom and son making their way to school. One morning, it was snowing so hard I could barely see 10 feet in front of me, but they were out, bundled up, rolling to school as the sun caught snowflakes on his tongue as they made their way across the street. Another day, as they were waiting for the crosswalk to signal them to go, the son picked flowers from the side of the road and then held them up to his mom's nose so she could smell the fragrance of spring. One morning not long ago, the son sat on the edge of his mom's wheelchair, holding her limp hand while reading her a book as she skillfully maneuvered them with only a few small movements of her chin over the potholes and around a car who had failed to yield, all while holding hands with her boy and delighting in a story. And there are two things that my morning commute has taught me recently. The first is that it is staggering what you see when you make a point to look for it, especially when we get stuck in routines and forget that there is magic happening all around us. And the second is that we get to choose how we spend our moments. We can rise above any hurdles in our way and choose to smell flowers and tell jokes and use whatever limited resources are at our disposal to live well. And I've been working on living more intentionally lately, and it started because I was inspired by that mom and son on my commute. I want to live freer and have more fun and not be so worried that things don't look how I would have hoped they would at this point in my life. And so I'm taking every opportunity I have to find fun and beauty in the routine parts of my day. Yesterday, we had a small snowstorm in Denver, and Joe and I debated about whether or not we should take our dogs for a walk along our favorite trail because it was cold and muddy. But we bundled up and went, and not only did we have the beautiful tree-lined trail all to ourselves, but we also got to marvel at the big floating snowflakes that kept landing on our eyelashes. And to top it all off, we took advantage of our winter boots and splashed in big puddles of rain that had fallen the previous day. And I'm not talking about little splashes. I'm talking about full jump, both feet in, splashes that soak your pants, that leave you breathless with laughter. Because why the heck not? And also because we get to choose how we fill our moments. It reminds me of a quote by Mary Oliver, who once asked, "Are you breathing just a little and calling it a life?" And I've been thinking a lot about this idea of how we choose our moments, and it's spilling over into how we choose to live as a family, how we spend our free time, and what we are prioritizing over the course of our day. Which is why I thoroughly love the next conversation that you're about to hear with Francie Winslow, where she shares about a decision she and her family made to be more intentional with their days. Francie and her husband have 5 kids under 9. She's traveled the world and believes that the secret to global healing can be found in what she calls real love. She talks regularly about sex, marriage, and mothering, but today I asked Francie to share about an experiment her family undertook to get rid of their TV. And before we jump into the interview, I just have to tell you that Francie is the real deal. She is kind, the most intentional person you have ever met, and simply being in her presence makes you understand God a little better. That's why I can't wait for you to hear from my friend, Francie Winslow. So, Francie, I read a blog post of yours that totally inspired me in so many ways. And in it, you talk about how almost a year ago, you and your husband decided to get rid of your TV. Can you tell me a little bit about how that decision came about?
Okay, so it's been several layers. I feel like sweeping change doesn't usually happen all at once. It's a process. And this conversation originally started when my son, who's now 9, was about 3. And we were realizing that there was a monster in our home who was ganging up on us, and it was called the TV. And he was joining forces with our children, and they were winning all the time. It was like they were begging to watch TV. And I was feeling tired and defeated. And finally, I would say, okay, just one show. And then it would turn into 4 shows. And I started realizing that that was not what I wanted as a mom. But I was not really able to fight that well with discipline and with structure because I just kept caving in. And so we talked about it, and we talked about what we really wanted the culture of our home to be like and the values we really wanted to see. And we did kind of an experiment, and we said, what if we just got rid of our TV? And that was when they were really little, and it kind of reintroduced a while later. And then 2 years ago, we moved, and we just never plugged it back in. So we took a stint of no TV. Then there was actually an earthquake, and I got really scared, and I ran out to Best Buy, and I bought a TV because I was afraid.
You're like, I need to know what's going on.
I didn't know what was happening.
Wait, you had an earthquake in D.C., or were you somewhere? Okay.
We did. It was
Crazy.
A really random thing, which is why I felt panicked. Like, what is happening? My dresser's shaking, and picture frames are falling, and my husband was out of town. And it was just one of those moments where I said, we've got to get our TV back. And so I went out to Best Buy, and I bought a cheap TV. And so, but the problems reoccurred because I wasn't in a place as a mom of a bunch of littles to have super strict boundaries. And so we moved 2 years ago to another house, and we just never plugged it back in. So it's in the basement somewhere. We don't even have the cords or the cable package. It's just not a part of our lives anymore.
So fascinating. And in our house, we have done this before too and gotten rid of our TV. And honestly, like the biggest conversation between my husband and I we know that we have family members who, when they come to our house, will be like totally appalled and not know what to do with themselves, right? So like one of them we know will come for a week and stay, and he equates like having a television with having a toilet. Like they're the same thing, right? Yeah. They're that essential. And so were there ever moments where you're like, this isn't going to work, everybody's going to think we're weird? Like,
yeah. I mean, we have relatives, and they came, and I got the TV out, and I tried to plug it back in because I knew that it would make them feel comfortable to have it, and I didn't want them to feel awkward. That happened once, and my husband just kind of looked at me and let me do it. And then the next time they came, we just didn't do it, and we haven't plugged it in since. So I was definitely afraid of more not accommodating people, and I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable in my home. But then I just realized that it's okay for people to feel a little uncomfortable, and that what we have is richer because of the quality of what's happening in our home in terms of relationships and creativity and fun. And when the TV was on, even when that relative was visiting, it was noise that was grating on all of us. And so I think we just realized that we changed in the process, and that that's okay that other people live differently.
Okay, so what have been the biggest marked differences in your life since getting rid of your TV?
Yeah, I would for sure say my kids' creativity. They're still little, so I have 5 kids, 9 and under, and they pull out things like puzzles. They doodle, they do Etch-a-Sketch. We listen to a lot of audiobooks, and there's peace. I would say creativity and peace in our home because there's not this constant clamoring, and there's not noise. Unwanted, unsolicited input from voices that don't align with really what we want to be the culture of our home. And so I'd say peace and creativity, relational connection. We go to bed early. We wake up early. All of that is what has been for us a healthy family life.
Do you feel like you personally have more space in your life?
For sure. Yeah, I think I'm not a superwoman, and I have temptation to just veg out. But because I have eliminated that option of vegging out, I find other ways of filling my heart that are actually more fruitful and more satisfying and give me more space to do things like resting. I rest a lot, writing, sitting on the floor and playing with my kids instead of zoning out when it's easier to do that. So yeah, I would definitely say it's impacted my heart as a woman. I really want to have a quiet spirit, have a communicative voice in the world, but have a quiet inside and not be driven by anxiety and noise. And I find the more noise and stimuli that's in my life, the noisier my heart is. So I think it's directly related.
Do your kids get along better?
Yeah, they do, because they play together all the time. They're really close in age. So that's something that I think it helps that they play together. But yeah, they just have each other and they have a good time. And there's not bickering about, I guess, what show they're watching.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like when my kids are watching a lot of TV or on their devices a lot, for some reason it's like
angsty.
Yeah, angsty. Like there's this anxiousness inside of them.
I totally relate.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Was there ever a moment where before you got rid of your TV, you're like, how am I going to get anything done? Because I won't have like that hour when my kids are just quiet in front of the TV.
Yeah, for sure. I think it feels like a babysitter. And one wise mom told me as I was in this process of getting rid of my TV, and actually commented on that blog post, Francie, you're doing a great job. Don't forget that movies are not bad. So we bought a DVD player. We have a portable DVD player. Movies are not bad because you know what they're getting, and you can be happy about the content, and there's an end time. And so there's definitely times where we'll put on movies. And it's okay for them too, because it's kind of just a moment of rest for them. And if I have a podcast or if I have a phone call or something I really need to do, I know that that's an option. So it's not like
no TV
on,
whatsoever.
A farm with no electricity. we have iPads that's their reward, and they get it. We have a limit, 30 minutes. If you do all of your schoolwork, you get 30 minutes on the iPad, and they do, game apps or something that they enjoy. So they get privileges, but it's definitely not something that is a constant noise in our house. And I would say that I was afraid of that at the beginning, but I found that the peace that happens, it's like this letting go. When you let go of that need for control and thinking the TV will take care of it, and you actually let them play, you suddenly realize they've been in the basement for 2 hours and they're really happy. It's kind of like when you shove them outside, we say, you have to stay outside for 45 minutes. We talk about the magic, they got into the magical space, because they were finally outside long enough for their creativity to kick in and for them to play. And the I'm bored stops, and they're in their little magical world, which is what childhood should be.
We are huge fans of boredom at our house. Right? Like we all grew up bored, I feel like.
And they'll break through creativity at some point.
That's so good. Did you have to have any conversations with your husband, or was it a very mutual decision?
For this, it was very mutual. He was actually the one leading the charge. And I think I was kind of stuck more, what will our relatives think? Or what if we need it? What if there's breaking news? Or I kind of grew up in my home with the news always on. And so it's just kind of a part of what household feels like. And he was of the mindset, what good does it do for us? We can find whatever news we need online. We can get a news app, check it every day. There's notifications if there is an emergency of drastic proportions. And that's just, we kind of looked at what we wanted in life, and it didn't help us achieve any of the goals we wanted in our lives. So he led me there, really. He was more of a champion of it, and I followed, and I'm glad I did.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you don't have a TV.
Right.
Let's talk about other forms of technology.
Yes.
What is the state of that in your home? Are you like on your phone?
Yeah. So the phone is a huge thing. And I read a book actually this last year called Deep Work by Cal Newport. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
It's a very profound work. It's not geared towards family. It's geared more towards the economy and business. But the idea is technology is such a distraction, and it's actually disabling us from being able to produce good things for the world, because it's fracturing our ability for our mind to focus. It really convicted me as a Christian, because I believe that my calling in the world is to produce good things that bless the world and to bring bits of heaven to earth, like Jesus prayed. And if I take that calling seriously, I need to steward my mind well and not have a fragmented mind from constant input and constant distraction. There's so many studies that talk about what having our phone constantly on us does, even to our brain activity. So I have been very convicted over that. Walking through it over the last few years, trying to figure out what that looks like is another story. So one thing that we've done that actually was a friend, Krista Gilbert, encouraged me to do, she has a tech box on her kitchen counter. And so we installed that a few years ago. And we, when we're home, we just put our phones in the tech box. And what that does is it helps me be intentional with why I'm on my phone, because phones are not bad. They're huge tools, so helpful. But what it allows me to do is I have to walk over there and pick it up. And that intentional walking over there makes me pause and ask myself, why am I going over to pick up my phone right now? Is it because I want a distraction from my 5 kids? I want to escape the chaos that I'm in right now and go to another place? Is it because I'm bored and I just want to fill my mind with something to entertain me? Is it because I want affirmation of somebody who just maybe read a post that I did and I want to see, do people like me? All of those things I think feed my tech addiction, and trying to discern what are the motives for my tech use, because I really don't want to be led by any of those things. And so when I walk over to the tech box, I have to intentionally grab it out of the box and then make the decision, why do I need this? And so if I need to text somebody, I need to call somebody, send an email, that's great. But it's helped kind of put a check system in place for not having it with me, because there's definitely been days where I take my phone to the bathroom, to the laundry room. I mean, everywhere. I even, check my phone sitting on the toilet because there's a quiet moment and I'm craving being somewhere else, to be honest, And so I've been trying to navigate, how can I rewire my habits to be more intentional with technology, because it definitely had begun to invade places where I knew in my heart, this is not healthy.
So good.
And I know there's 5 little eyes watching me too.
Mm-hmm. I've been going through The Artist's Way lately. In one of the chapters, it talks about taking a week off from any reading. So it's social media, not even reading books or websites or anything. And it recalibrated me in a way that was really quite revolutionary. Like, to not have all that input over the course of a week really was so clarifying to reset. So I'm a huge fan, and I love just really becoming aware, like you said, of why we're on our phones and what that habit is that we sometimes fall into.
You don't even notice it.
Totally. How do you respond to people who suggest that your kids won't have healthy boundaries with technology if they're not exposed to it?
Yeah. Well, I would definitely, I'm not where you are yet, because my oldest is just 9, and we definitely are, at this point, have said, no way. But I am sure that the place that I need to start is getting right boundaries myself and modeling that for my kids, not handing them what could be a weapon of mass destruction and saying, figure it out, because really phones have the potential for great good and incredible damage. Not only the huge risk of pornography accessibility and all of the things that are a click away or a scroll away on Instagram or wherever it might be, but just the breaking down of myelin, which is the fatty tissue in our brains that allows quick thinking. Technology and constant distraction actually breaks that down. And so when our kids are always on their phones, we're actually showing them, or when we're always on our phones, we're showing our kids that habit is okay, but it's really not okay for their health, for their spirituality, for their growth as an individual. And I think I'm convicted that it starts with me learning those healthy boundaries and actually verbalizing what I'm learning with my kids. So we talk a lot, even to our little kids, mommy and daddy are trying really hard to have good boundaries with our phones because it is so easy for us to want to be on them all the time. And one thing we started doing was, it started in our marriage actually. Wyatt, my husband, started asking me permission to use his phone. And it really bothered me, I'm going to be honest, because it convicted me. I'm like, sure, you can use your phone. Why are you asking me? And he's like, I want to honor you because you matter to me. And when I'm in your presence, I don't want to be distracted. So is it okay with you if I text this guy from work real quick? Is it okay if I finish this email? And he was very specific with what he was doing on his phone, which then let me know that he wasn't on his phone just doing whatever he wanted to. He was doing a job and going to get off to be with me. Really convicted me, and we started practicing that in our marriage, and then we started practicing it with our kids. Wow. Where we say, hey, I say to my son, Wade, do you mind if I text my friend Mandy real quick? We have a conversation coming up. And he'll say, sure, Mom. But it's me modeling for them a way of intentionally walking through tech use in a way that is honoring boundaries and honoring people, because really it's what it comes down to. Are we honoring our own selves and how God made us to live as integrated whole people that are not constantly fractured and distracted? And are we honoring the people that we're with as very valuable children of God by giving them our full presence and our full selves? So I think that I'm still very young in the motherhood game, but honoring, showing our kids how we're honoring them with tech and honoring how God is leading us, I think is one way that we're trying to navigate that.
I love that. That's brilliant. So good. Okay, I have a weird question that I ask everybody.
Okay.
What's the best advice you never got?
The best advice I never got, I think, would be to rest, and that there's incredible power in rest. And it's very related to this tech conversation. I was, as a new mom, feeling the need to get involved in everything and to sign my kids up for everything because I thought that would give my kids the advantage, and that's what all the other moms were doing. I will tell you that we are preschool dropouts because we kept trying to do preschool, and a few months in, it was too crazy for our family. So I took them out of preschool. Like, none of my kids did preschool.
I love it. That's
because
so
it
fun.
Was too crazy for our family, and we kept feeling drawn towards this lifestyle of rest where everyone around us was doing more. We just felt this pull to do less and to be more. And it was kind of countercultural, and no one gave me permission to do it, but we started realizing fruit is happening. And it would have been nice for somebody to have shortcut that and say, it's okay to do that, be countercultural, have more time at home, to simplify your life. I read a book by one of my professors from college called Sacred Rhythms, Aligning Your Life for Spiritual Transformation. And one of her big things is daily, weekly, monthly, yearly rhythms of rest. And so we practice Sabbath on a Saturday where we don't do much of anything. We enjoy time with God and with each other. We linger over coffee and games. And we don't even do a lot of sports. You know, our kids do a few sports, and it's something that's manageable. We're not the biggest involved people in that capacity, but we have really quality time together. I have 5 kids at this point, and I'm probably more rested with 5 kids than I was with 2. Wow. And I think it's because I've grown in the idea of what rest means for me, that it's not like getting a full 10 hours of sleep at night. Because I still am not sleeping through the night. I think it's been 10 years since I've slept through the night. But it's more of this feeding my heart and my mind and my body with what fills me and satisfies me, and living this pace of living filled up and rested and saying no to the frenetic busyness that really pulls us in.
I love that. And I love that about you, in that you choose what works for you and your family and the rhythm that you have chosen. Yeah. And you're not subjected to, or you're not choosing the same things that everyone else is just because that's the thing to choose. Yeah. So good, so healthy, and such a good reminder for all of us. Are there 3 just really practical tips for someone who's like, I need to recalibrate my tech life? Yeah.
Well, I did buy a home phone because we haven't had a landline in forever. And I thought, if somebody really needs us, I want my relatives to have that number just in case I don't have my phone on me all the time. Because that was one of my feelings, was I need a phone with me all the time. But if, something happens, there's another way to connect with me. So I did get that. I bought an alarm clock, an old school alarm clock, because I realized I needed to stop bringing my phone to bed with me. Because I was looking at it at night, and I was looking at it first thing in the morning, and I could feel it draining life from my soul. Mm-hmm. And I could feel it causing that frenetic that same angsty that we're talking about in our kids. I could feel it in me just by checking all the feeds, news feed and whatnot. So I bought an alarm clock, and that helped a ton. And then the tech box has really been key. I think it's a visual showing to our kids, even of this is where tech belongs, is in a box. It's helpful, but it doesn't rule our lives. It's not the center of us. And I think that's all given me permission to be a little bit more free in this area. I still struggle. I still fight it. I still have to revisit my whys of why I have boundaries to inspire me to keep those up. But I think it's worth the fight.
So good. I'm cheering you on. Francie, where can people find you?
They can find me on my website, franciewinslow.com, and I hang around Instagram and Facebook as time allows. Try to simplify that too, but online is where you could connect with me.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now go out and have more fun, and don't come back until you do.